tonight we weigh in on the topic that Ugandans are beginning to talk about. Is a national dialogue even a possibility? If it happens actually, as it is planned to happen, starting the 21st of November, what can it achieve in terms of resolving Uganda's many unresolved political questions? And some people have been asking, what role and how will the incumbent government, the National Resistance Movement, and President Yoweri Museveni play in such a dialogue? I will introduce first a guest we have online. One of the people who have been doing the behind-the-scenes work to prepare this national dialogue, Morrison Wakakamba. He's joining us via telephone link. If his connection is not good, it's because he's traveling. So when we lose him, please understand. And I can, that's a signal of not very good things to come. But Morrison will be joining us very shortly. I have with me in the studio, I have Onapito Ekomoloit making a return after a sabbatical. Ona, very nice to have you back.
Good evening, Charles, and good evening, viewers. And nice to be with the ladies, finally.
Yes, and once again, we have a Noel journalist panel with two ladies returning from last Sunday. I have Agatha Atide. Agatha, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Charles. Good evening, viewers.
And Rosebel Kagumire.
Thank you, Charles.
I understand Morrison is back online. Morrison, do we have you online? Hello, Morrison? Morrison?
Yes, Charles.
Yes, thank you for joining us, Morrison.
You're welcome. How are you?
Good, good. How are you doing? I have with me in studio Rosebel Kagumire.
Yes. How are you?
Agatha Atweire.
Okay.
And Onapito Ekomoloit.
Yes.
We're discussing the national dialogue, and I understand that you and other Ugandans have been intimately involved in the process to try and get this country talking about its political future. Could you bring us quickly up to speed on exactly what it is that you guys have been cooking?
Yeah, what I know is that on the 21st of November, it is going to be the launch of the national dialogue process. Not the dialoguing or negotiation, but the launch of a dialogue process that is going to illuminate the kind of issues that a group of the Interreligious Council, which is an ecumenical organizational formation that brings together all religious persuasions in the country, that we are joined by the Elders Forum and the Women's Situation Room. Essentially, most of the groups that had arranged and organized a successful presidential debate that led to the 2016 presidential election. So that's the same group with that came in this space without legitimacy and moved around the country for close to 1 year plus, talking to Ugandans about a number of issues that Ugandans feel should be debated on, should be worked on in order to create a greater society, a nation under God, but a greater society that seeks to really consolidate democracy, consolidate peace, consolidate transformation, recognizing the fact that there remains a number of unresolved issues, some of them gravitating on the unfinished peaceful transition, political transition agenda, and recognizing that much as we had this deeper consensus, national consensus, ushered in by the 1995 Constitution, still that Constitution and the way it is has essentially failed to deliver free, fair, and peaceful elections. And I think there are a number of precedents that have delivered on that, even the 2016 one, very recent. There remains other issues like the national values consensus. There seems to be, lack of shared understanding of what actually makes one a Ugandan, what are Ugandan values, the diversity consensus. How are we moving to really harness our diversity as a country and move to make sure that those diversities deliver a dividend for us as a country? Do we have an economy that is inclusive, not for the few, but for the many? Today I was looking at the data sets provided by UBOS, really that show very, very serious, differences in how the economy is standing if you look regionally. So there are a number of those issues, even the land question that has never been resolved. We still have a number of land tenure systems that seem not to work for everybody. So there are those broader issues that have not been resolved. The other point is that this national dialogue process is about people. It is supposed to be people-led. Because if you look from Lancaster to Moshi to Nairobi peace talks, these were positional talks. These were positional dialogues or negotiations which were about who takes power. They were about negotiating power. But they were never about the principle of arranging how power is reproduced and how power is shaped in the country. So perhaps one of the outcomes, expectations of this national dialogue process is this capacity to rearrange how power, the formation or how power is formed, reproduced in this country. Because one of the things that have been highlighted is how do you, for example, have an electoral commission that is looked at by all persuasions in this country as free and fair? How is it appointed? How is it remunerated? How would you create an independent, for example, electoral commission? How do you create an independent judiciary? So there are all those number of issues that when this group of religious leaders, the elders from the Situation Room, moved around the country, talking to over, I think, 3,000 people from all facets of the country, from all corners of the country. And some of these issues came up. So what is going to happen on the November 21st will be to launch that process. People will organize themselves around those thematic areas that I mentioned, and will dig deeper. And one of the key issues also will be how will the resolutions of the national dialogue process and conversations be implemented? Who are going to be the guarantors? So from the background, we believe that it will have to be the people, it will have to be through the African solidarity, and that the funding mechanism should be, this process should be funded by taxpayers, perhaps through a parliamentary appropriated resources.
Okay.
So
now,
those are some of the, I think those are some of the few nuggets that I can give you online.
Morrison, I hear you on that. You sound quite confident, but you know there is a background to this. You just mentioned the talks in Lancaster. You talked about the Moshi conference, talked about the Nairobi peace talks, which people call the Nairobi peace jokes. Lancaster was just before independence.
Yes.
Moshi was to resolve a political crisis that had been running in the country for some years.
Yes.
And Nairobi was to attempt to resolve a war that had been raging for, I think, 4 years then, from 1981 to 1985, when the Nairobi peace talks were held. And people dismissed them as peace jokes because they never had any impact. What is it that is pushing a national dialogue at a time when we have been holding elections regularly every 5 years, and we just held one in 2016? What's the motivation, for example, for the incumbent party and the incumbent president to participate in this dialogue process?
Yeah, you know, when you have a situation where you have a number of governments, whether some are recognized by the law, others are not recognized by the law, we have a government in power that is running the country. You've been seeing activities of the government that says it is a people's government, whether it is operating in the shadows or otherwise. So once you have that situation, Charles, I don't want to believe you think it's a normal situation.
You had a situation just before this round of attempt at dialoguing or discussing,
yes,
or dialoguing for the country.
There is a segment of Ugandans, whether you want to call them the majority or the minority, who really feel that the current status quo is not serving them equally, and who don't believe that whatever is going on is legitimate.
I hear you on that, Morrison. Yes.
Any opportunity or any chance for a shared understanding via a round table to be able to have an inclusive process to believe that the institutions of the state, I'm not talking about institutions of government per se, I'm talking about the state, there is a difference there.
Yes.
That delivers people in equity, whether it is police, whether it is the electoral commission, whether it is the army, where people belong. Unless that happens, then you are going to have then you're going to have a shadow state. Then you are going to have people operating in the shadows. Then you are going to foment instability. So this is why I mentioned some time back, Charles, that I think that this national dialogue provides a golden parachute for whoever emerge of this situation to be able to help shape a future that is different from now.
Yes, I hear you on that.
That I heard about recently.
Yes.
The other point why we talk about consolidating, we're not operating from a vacuum. To not recognize that NRM and President Museveni have contributed meaningfully to the process of moving forward this country positively is to start on a false start, is to miss a point. So the issue now is there has been some level of peace, there have been some level of progress from the economic front, there have been some progress in settling land-related issues, diversity, inclusiveness, but we are still at a point where there is still a lot missing, and people believe that it's time to talk to see how do we move faster and what sort of a political arrangement, what sort of an economic arrangement that can usher in, the dividend or quick results that can help push this country quickly.
I hear you on that. Heading into the 2016 elections, there was a fairly comprehensive effort to bring the nation to dialogue. I'm sure you're familiar with that national consultative process that resulted in the Citizens Compact, which was launched, I think, in November 2014 or 2015, which was launched somewhere at Hotel Africana.
Yes.
And it ended up with nothing significant to put on the table. Yes, there is a document. There were takeaways called the Citizens Compact.
Yes. That is different.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I think that process galvanized more forces that continue to demand for free and fair elections, but also be vigilant and be interested in the political process. So perhaps the people who turned up, the number of people who turned up without that process perhaps would not have turned up. But also too, all those processes could have, I don't have evidence of that, but my own lenses in politics show me that that the CDA, the Democratic Alliance, and all those processes were essentially because of that arrangement. But also that process pushed the government at the time, in my view, to also craft an alternative agenda around electoral reform. Some of them, you could say they are piecemeal, but the government also put on the table through parliament some of the reforms. And I think, Siri, the idea around dialoguing and sitting in the conversation and the processes is not an event, it's a process. Even when this process is done, it is not going to deliver in 1 year, it is not going to deliver in 2 years. It can deliver on a few things, it can deliver on a significant amount of things that are important for the country, but I think the principle in itself of the country dialoguing about the bigger picture is not something that can be dismissed.
Yes, Morrison, I hear you on that, but my question is, this is a country that has never resolved anything through dialoguing. Why do you believe that this time round you can resolve anything through dialoguing? You had a very... just a moment.
Dialoguing should never stop.
Yes.
Otherwise,
can I build...
bombing each other out of power remains the order of the day.
Can I build my question, please?
That has resigned to that kind of a future. You want a country... And that's why I say this dialogue provides a golden parachute, and the golden parachute is essentially a hope into a peaceful transition, into a peaceful future in this country. If there is no dialogue, then how are these issues going to be resolved? It's going to be bombing out each other, and that's the consequence, that's an outcome that is bad for every Ugandan, of every political persuasion, of every religious persuasion.
I am asking about the timing of this, because the golden parachute out of a political quagmire would have been captured in the preamble to the 1995 Constitution. The process of consultation on developing a new consensus to generate a new constitution of from about 1989 that delivered the Uganda Constitution in 1995 was seen as that golden parachute. You and I, just a moment, you and I.
Since that constitution was promulgated, Charles,
yes,
there are a lot of events, whether political or otherwise, that have changed within the country.
Yes.
That country in 1995, you had less than 20 million people. Now we have 40 million, over 40 million people. So there have been a number of amendments that have reshaped how power is articulated, how power is acquired, and how power is kept in this country. Recently, we went through a number of papers and data sets out of fraudsters who, about their views on age limit, on term limit, and all around the constitution. So yes, the 1995 constitution was powerful, but whether it delivers the same dividend like it delivered 10 or so years ago, I think it is a matter that you and me would agree that it's no longer the same dividend, it is no longer the same price of food.
Precisely, I'm asking the question about the timing of this attempt at dialogue. When
Yeah,
the when the effort.
There have been political events, there have been economic events that have accumulated, and statistics show that have divided the country, and that the country is not on the same page. So therefore, the country needs to sit.
What I'm saying is the process preceding the 2016 elections, the generation of the Citizens Compact was staring in the face of a difficult transition of power. Immediately after that election, just a moment. Immediately after that election.
You really need to get if that process for me was the correct process, and it was on the right agenda, and I think it is the same process that is continuing. And what those process facilitators that went around the country on electoral reform were talking about, it's the same thing. You saw what happened after the 2016 elections in this country.
Okay.
I mean, it became blanketed, it was the contest. I mean, all these issues, you are aware about them. So
Okay, let me draw my colleagues into the discussion.
And honestly, debate the issue.
Let me draw my colleagues into the discussion. They might have some questions for you to help understand this, Honor.
Well, we're enjoying the dialogue between the two of you. Morrison, nice to hear from you.
It's very difficult to hear anybody.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't. Well, look for me, Charles. I think just before coming to the show, I tried to refresh myself on the meaning of the word dialogue. Of course, everyone knows, but I wanted to be sure. So I Googled, and one of the two variations that quickly popped up was one. It could either be talking in a play, like in drama, basically, a play, or talking to solve a problem. So I think listening to Morrison, the biggest challenge is this is sounding more like another call for a CA, Constitutional Assembly, to discuss all the problems of Uganda. And that is going to it will not go anywhere. It will almost be like a play. And the answers to such a proposal are so well scripted from the government in power. They will tell you there was a constitution that was debated and enacted with the majority views. There are elections regular. So we have institutions to solve all the problems we are talking about. So leave those institutions do the work, and unless if you, so I think this dialogue would only become perhaps unique and a bit serious if it narrowed itself to something that is really the greatest problem of Uganda, and it shouldn't be more than three things, or better, it should be one thing. So what is the issue in the country that you want to solve? Otherwise, most of these issues Morrison is mentioning have been mentioned, and the response from the government has been standard, and you can say correct, that we have institutions, that we have parliament to debate these issues. So anybody outside those institutions will be engaged in an academic exercise. But I think there are only issues that you can say Parliament has failed to resolve, or is conflicted, is not objective. Maybe that's what you should put on the table. What is the issue?
Morrison,
I have not yet heard what is the issue which Parliament cannot address that this dialogue would address.
Morrison, have you been able to pick on Apito's concerns?
Hello?
Have you been able to pick on Apito's concerns?
Yeah, I heard you mention that it's an academic exercise, and I really don't agree with that, because, you know, first of all, this dialogue can only succeed if it is backed by the people. You would agree with me, because this is not about government against anybody or those organizing it against anybody. People have common people, whether they are from the government, whether they are from political formations, whether they are civic, whether they are political, whether they are religious, to discuss really matters that have been failed to be resolved by the current architecture of government, that architecture of the country. So to say that everything can be resolved by government. So why hasn't the government for the past have failed to resolve the issue of free and fair elections. We can just begin there, if Napito can answer that. But also, too, I agree with Napito on one point, that, you know, the dialogue, it doesn't have to discuss everything, all the problems in this country. It can narrow down a few issues that can be discussed. That's why there are only 8 teams. And once the process begins, the discussion, this process, I think it can even take 10, it can take 5 years, as long as it moves on to restructure power, to restructure institutions, to be able to deliver for Uganda.
Okay.
Because this is a Ugandan-led dialogue. President Museveni should come in as an individual. Chiza Besigye should come in as an individual. Muchamut should come in as an individual, because this is not a dialogue about positions of who becomes the prime minister, who becomes the president, or who goes to parliament. It is about resolving the issues and concerns that affect Ugandans, and all these people should come in their own formation or citizens to sit on the round table.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Agatha.
So, Morrison, sorry. So, if they come as individuals, as Ugandans, then that's what I'm saying. It becomes an academic exercise because it will not have the power of the law.
Not at all.
What will, I mean, what will be the constitutional mandate of the?
Of the resolution. If you have agreed that, for example, let's take an example of the Electoral Commission, that the Electoral Commission should be constituted in this format. So how should it be done? Perhaps it shouldn't be the president appointing the Electoral Commission. It should be appointed by Parliament in consultation with the judiciary. That's restructuring essentially how the Electoral Commission is put in place and how it is run.
But Morrison, okay, Morrison.
So now, how do we move forward on that? And
Morrison, let's take the issue.
I think the beginning point, Charles, and Onapito and the colleagues in the studio, is that we have to know that this is a process. It's not an event, and all people with good ideas, Onapito, Charles, Nobert Mao, all should come on table and say, this is not what we need. Perhaps we should be discussing something different. And all those issues should be enmeshed. They become part of the tapestry, as long as the outcome is a better Uganda that is for the many and not for the few.
Okay.
Charles, I mean, Morrison doesn't have to answer this and not to take all the time before the ladies. I think Morrison is slightly contradicting himself. I know it's not about him, it's about the whole team. If you say, no, just hold on. You say,
listen to it, please.
Listen to me. You say this is not about power. But the moment you, for example, go about the Electoral Commission, you know precisely that the president insists on being the one responsible for constituting, because it allows him to have a fair chance of controlling power. So if you don't have the power to get him not to have that power, how will you enforce your decision?
Okay, Morrison, before you respond, let me get the ladies in.
Actually, the big challenge here is that you cannot have a dialogue which is not among equals, because you must be able to see eyeball to eyeball and say, if you don't allow this Electoral Commission to be independent, we shall do this. Okay. So what can you do?
I think that's fundamental. That actually is the fulcrum of what should be happening. Agatha, do you have a quick question? Morrison, take these questions. You won't have to respond to them now. We'll pick it up after a very short break.
Not for
just
Morrison,
make a comment.
actually.
Yes, if you
my question would be to you and Morrison. Are you guys saying we don't need the dialogue, or are you doubting the relevance or its practicability? Because I think we need one. I think we have way too many issues that my thinking stem from one big problem that Onapito kept putting to Morrison about power and all that. But I think that to resolve the issues that are in this country, there's an issue of, and I saw it in their framework paper, of equality, of people benefiting equally. And it made me think about the stories I've been hearing about how Banyankole, how Westerners have taken over everything. Although we know there are Westerners that have nothing, that are also like the rest. So, and these are from people that wouldn't just...
And there are non-Westerners who have a lot.
Yeah. And these are not from people who are just going to talk without seeing these observations. A friend of mine was telling me, Baganda never used to be tribalistic, for example, but I have a neighbor who refused to sell his land to a Munyankole and preferred to sell it to me, who was going to give him, I think, like 50% or less of the money. But he said, I cannot be neighbors with those people. And another one was telling the other day, they have taken everything. And I said, but if you people who are, we see as exposed and you, the elite, can talk like that, what about?
And the question maybe we'll have to deal with when we come out of the break is, are those some of the issues that actually genuinely come into a national dialogue process? And doesn't, what are the chances that this national dialogue process gets derailed on discussing the question of transition, and that transition will mean from President Museveni to another leader where he is expected to come in as an equal, or whether he comes in as the president to preside over the opening and then leave other people talk. Rosabel, you can make a quick comment and then we'll take a break. We'll develop this in the subsequent.
For me, the major question is, when I was listening to Morrison, is about what is the basis of needing a national dialogue. We seem to think that we are where we are because there's some misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. People have worked to put us where we are, and people who have power. So we cannot come to say, let's dialogue because we do not seem to understand each other. No. We have to face the fact that there are certain steps that have happened why you have a military that is mostly top, leadership comes from the same region. Why do you have a certain company that is leading the national process and the people earning tenders are from here? This is not a misunderstanding, and you're not going to negotiate yourself out of that. You have to. I think that for me, the dialogue is like an older generation trying to salvage their whatever legacy they think they have, because it does not really deal with the issues of power and how power is being exercised in the current issues that Ugandans are facing. And how will that dialogue, if you're asking me to pay for your dialogue, you're asking me to pay you to start talking about my problems. How is that going to
go there and talk also?
No. They're actually asking you to walk into that dialogue by asking the taxpayer to pay for this. They're asking you to walk in without expecting somebody to foot your bill.
My issue is that you're thinking that people have not been talking, that Ugandans have somehow, I think the problem is not Ugandans not talking. The problem is, who are they talking to? Are they listening? And what guarantees that this dialogue is going to give us an ear, and later on that ear translating to solving the major problems that are on the table? I don't see
Morrison,
that.
I believe you're picking those some of those comments, and we'll be inviting our viewers also weigh in on this discussion, both via social media platforms, and also by call-ins when we'll put up the number, so that we continue to engage with this process. Kindly stay online. We'll take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll pick up this discussion from there. Welcome back to this edition of the Fourth Estate. We're discussing the national dialogue. The big question is, as issues are beginning to come, can talks resolve Uganda's political question? We'll be asking you to join in this discussion. I will put up the number so that you can call in and share with us your views. We have online Morrison Rwakakamba. He's been part of the team working behind the scenes to deliver this national dialogue process that is, as he mentioned in the first quarter, beginning on the 21st of November. When the process will be launched, and he says it can take as long as possible. It doesn't have to be resolved within a short time. Jose Nwabine is watching us and says, but for how long shall this country be in politicking and electioneering? Ugandans have always spoken every after 5 years regarding how and what their political future should be like. Unless this is a constitutional review process, people should stop wasting taxpayers' money, time and space. Jose Nwabine. Well, Jose Nwabine, every election we have held in this country has been controversial. Many of them have ended in court. One has ended on the streets. And I think there was one in 1980 which ended in a bush war. So if that is a way through which Ugandans have been indicating how they should be governed, and I don't think it really does serve.
So Charles, then that's a very good entry point. Then part of this, one of the things we need to address then is, if after elections that has been the outcome, and if can we do without elections?
Is that,
I mean,
is that an issue? Is that an issue you think we should be discussing?
I mean, that's why the dialogue should face. Either if we have had elections that have become meaningless and caused more problems, so how can we have better elections, or can we actually have no elections? can we have, I mean, the world is still in all kinds of political arrangements, from monarchies to military dictatorships to, why maybe Uganda needs its own form of true democracy, because all these attempts are cut and paste. And I know the real question here, which Morrison and others don't want to face, is the country is stuck with a leader who has been in power for long, who has done good, and some people think he should leave, others think he should not leave. That's the only thing to have a dialogue about, because that's what
He has only done good.
I mean, some think he has not done good. Some think he has not done good. Some think he has done good.
We have
so
to.
nobody wants to face that question, and he's going to be at a dialogue. And if they cannot face him eyeball to eyeball and resolve that question, the rest is going just in circles.
Yeah, because when you talk about a dialogue, Charles, you're assuming we're coming to this table, we are all equal and we'll be given. But the way the landscape is, it's totally skewed. So one person knows they have the power. We managed to have an election in 2016, and the result was that the leader of opposition was under house arrest for many days after that.
The main opposition politician, not the leader of opposition.
Yeah, rather the main opposition candidate in that election was under house arrest for many days.
For 43 days, I think.
43 days. You know, all the people who are engaged in this dialogue actually were key in trying to negotiate that he should be free. So if you're negotiating for a freedom of a man who has no business being behind bars, then you have to take steps behind. What are you going to negotiate then this time?
Maybe that's where you need to begin a negotiation. Agatha, you are pro
are we negotiating our rights?
No, you're pro a dialogue process.
That's what I wanted to ask her. Earlier, Rosabel said that it looks like the older generation wants a safe landing. And later you said it's not of equals, the negotiation. And me, I thought you were saying that they want, and I've heard this before, that Museveni might want to leave, but is worried about what will happen after. What if this is what this dialogue is meant to resolve?
And somehow we are all in the dark. And some of the Ugandans, the thing is that we have a key process, which is an election, and the president you're trying to bring to a dialogue has managed to use force. There was Tojikwatako protests everywhere in this parts of this country. He managed to get himself a presidential term limit, age limit, to pass through by hook or crook. We saw that process going on. This does not look to me like a president. When I say like a president who is going to leave, when I say that it's the elders,
no, the question was, somebody would ask,
not the president himself. I am separating the actors here. The people who are
somebody would ask, should a discussion, a dialogue about this country and its future be about Yoweri Museveni, the National Resistance Movement, or should it be about the country?
Is there a difference at this point between Yoweri Museveni and the country?
I don't know. What do you think? Okay, let me take a message from Gift. Gift is watching us from Nansana, and he says, Charles, all that Uganda needed yesterday are strong institutions as opposed to strong individuals. As long as Uganda's institutions are deliberately being controlled by one person in the name of Mr. Museveni, as long as the Ugandan opposition remain characterized by opportunists and individuals who think and plan for their stomachs and families alone, no single national dialogue, even if it's funded by the World Bank, IMF, and Africa Development Bank, at the same time, will yield tangible results for Uganda, and most especially under this NRM regime. Another viewer is Linus Ngompek. He says, national dialogue for what? When we are in a multi-party dispensation, I don't see us having challenges politically, save for a few cases by some loose cannons in the opposition. I would advise the organizers of the dialogue to discuss poverty eradication than wasting time on politics. NRM is still doing well. Thank you, Linus Ngompek. And Linus Ngompek is an RDC, if I should inform our viewers. Another viewer here says, someone says, greetings to you all. He's watching the show passionately. Another viewer says, I would like Morrison to clarify for us the difference between the proposed dialogue and a constitutional assembly, the Constituent Assembly, CA. To me, it sounds like a constitutional making process. I agree with Kagumire that there is no misunderstanding. We actually know our problems. Onapito aptly puts it clear. we should be talking about transition. Morrison, do we still have you online? Hello?
No, you went off.
Okay, I think we lost Morrison. We'll try and get back to him. But could you kindly put the numbers on the screen so that people can call in and share with us their opinions? But others are encouraged to send via our social media platforms, Twitter and Facebook, and also a bit of WhatsApp.
Charles, I think just to expand on the issue of transition, because a lot of people, including Morrison, are saying the process as it is not working. And it's unlikely that the process...
I have a caller, I'm sorry. Okay. Hello? 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 Please turn down the volume on your TV set if you're calling us.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Turn down the volume on your TV set so that we don't get an echo in studio.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Your name and where you're calling from, sir?
I'm Stephen calling from Brara.
Yes, Stephen, go ahead with your question or comment.
My problem is Uganda. I can see, so first of all, some of you there are bitter. Before even the dialogue takes place, some people are bitter, like the second lady to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you talk of a dialogue for Uganda, it is something that can help us as Ugandans, small or big, in power or not in power, to discuss issues that assist us to promote the common good or to identify vices that destroy our nation. Many Ugandans are pessimistic, and I'm sorry to tell you that the opposition, who thinks like the second lady, are so pessimistic. They don't see any good thing coming out of their country. I think they would rather leave this country and go outside where there is freedom and peace and liberty than staying here lamenting. Because I want to tell you that if something comes, whether it has been brought by government or opposition, Ugandans should actually own it, sit down and discuss, and maybe where there is nothing that can come out, then you can begin another agenda. But if people sat down, thought of the dialogue, the elders, the religious leaders, and now people are saying, what dialogue for? And the problem with Uganda is that they look at Uganda from a Museveni perspective. That lady was telling you that there is no difference between Uganda as a country and Museveni. That's untrue. That shows you that she's not educated. She's on a land. There is a huge difference between Uganda as a country and Museveni as an individual. He may be craving for power. He might have stayed in power for long. Staying in power for long does not mean that this country is not there. First of all, let me tell you, Museveni, by the way, staying in power, has made even such a dialogue to come to pass, has made such a forces state to be in place. You, other dictators, because people call Museveni a dictator, would not allow forces state to discuss the president and even punish him, bringing the opposition. Now, that kind of freedom to discuss and express yourself shows you that there is democracy in this country. If there was no democracy, freedom of speech, freedom, as much as people think that there is no freedom, there is dictatorship. But what kind of dictatorship? Go to other countries where there is dictatorship. Such a discussion don't take place at all.
Like which country?
Some of us who lived in the 60s, there was no such a talk. So this shows that this country is progressing, and of course all things cannot be ironed out and done in one day.
Thank you, Stephen.
And such a discussion is very necessary that you are making. If you could actually all the time, Charles, bring out both people in government and those, sometimes you bring on the opposition, the same Jews, who just only are lamenting, they don't see anything good. And yet they are in good houses, they drive good cars, their children are in good schools. I don't know where those good schools are if they are not in Uganda. Or I don't know which roads they are using if they are not in Uganda. Uganda is Museveni has, maybe as an individual, he has weaknesses, but does not stop that Uganda is not on the right track. Uganda is on the right track to an extent that even people are able to discuss writing papers, punish the president, put him side and down, and he does not say anything. You know, that is even an achievement
Go to Rwanda, which is talked as one of the best countries in Africa, and you speak like people speak against Museveni. You will not even sleep one day.
Well, thank you, Stephen. Thank you for your views. Well, there is a woman, there are two women actually, who were charged this week for a video in which they apparently insulted the president. And I think Stella Nyanzi, Dr. Stella Nyanzi also picked up during the week again for her social media, Facebook post in which she allegedly insulted the president's late mother. Stephen, I think we need to put that also into context and then ask the question, who is speaking from a realistic perspective and who is speaking from an idealistic perspective of what the country should be? And between those, Stephen says, should possibly leave the country and find some other place to live. Rosemary, I think she's referring to you. He's referring to you.
It's amazing that you can really ask people who care so much about their country that every day they risk their life to talk about what the ills we face and ask them to leave. Then if you really think like that, then it questions.
But his point is, every initiative that is mooted, you shoot it down. But so they put elections, you shoot them down. They put
initiated by
a national dialogue and you shoot it down.
Ugandans show up and vote. For all the processes that Ugandans, they have tried against all odds, even if years and years have passed and there's no free and fair election, still Ugandans show up and they vote. When it's about the trust of the people. And when he alleges that people only complain, Ugandans, when you say that opposition leaders are putting their kids in school, for me, my challenge is not about opposition leader, it's about who is the poorest person and what kind of education are they getting. Do you want to tell me that whoever can afford education should not talk about the ills of an education system? That whoever is living in their small gate and they are safe should not be worried about the insecurity we are facing. So really, I don't really relate to, it sounds like a person who wants us to be grateful rather than to know that we have to fight for the next step for the country to be, to be better.
Manteja Simo is watching us and says, Charles, firstly, you should be applauded for finally becoming gender sensitive on the fourth estate. That said, this national dialogue is wastage of time and space given the circumstances. What is this dialogue intended to achieve? Is there any sane Ugandan who believes President Museveni will negotiate himself out of power? What a dream by Maggie Chigoze and Justice Ogola. To seal the entire joke, President Museveni is expected to launch the dialogue. Teja Simwe. Maybe Stephen should have called after listening to Teja Simwe's comment. This is Jomo Mugasha, who says, the proposed dialogue seems to be in a disarray even before the onset, simply because unless you share same aspirations and values as a people, forget political parties, we cannot be on the same page. Say hi to Kagumire. This is a message for you from Jomo Gilbert Mugasha. Another viewer here says, this is Bernard Impeiro from Rubaga, who says, Charles, dialogue and then what? Who implements the results of the dialogue? I think the best dialogue would be done by Parliament, by the MPs who were elected by people. This whole dialogue issue is so basic that we must first agree on what is this dialogue about before we dialogue. Bernard Imperio. Well, Bernard Imperio, I don't know what your views were when members of Parliament were debating the Constitution Amendment on Article 102B last December. Another viewer here says, the strategic intent of a national dialogue is noble, but it's not a pragmatic approach to the governance challenges of our country. It is just a weak attempt to regain relevance by idealists and pacifists. There is no merit in discussing civic issues prior to building the civic maturity of the people. No national consensus can stand apart from the civic ability of the masses to guarantee and enforce it. Museveni did not destroy the constitution. The people's ignorance of real power defiled it. That is the sad truth. Joe Osia in Intinda. I also take a message from, let me take one more message, from David. David Karamagi is watching us and says, Uganda has been doing dialogue since independence. Like Ona has said, we just have so many problems that can't be handled simultaneously. If done, it would overwhelm the team organizing it, just like it seems to appear with the land probe team. It's also very unlikely that the dialogue with your landlord on reduction of rent payment would be a win-win. If the dialogue focused on land, culture and the environment, they'd probably make some wins. Power in Uganda seems a bad area for negotiations. For example, what would happen if NRM pulled out of the dialogue? Critical questions. Let me just take this as well. Joseph Burite. Joseph Burite says, going by the modalities for invitation described by Dr. Maggie Chigozi, it's safe to say the dialogue will be between the privileged establishment and the disgruntled establishment. Let them stop wasting our time. The attack on our democracy and aspirations shall be halted, but it won't be through talking shops. Thanks for the show, though. We'll take a quick commercial break and we'll come back. We'll continue to thresh out some of these issues. We'll be right back. Welcome to this last segment of the Fourth Estate. Anthony is watching us, I think, from somewhere in the United States, and he says, in support of Anapito's seemingly fringe point, recently the Electoral Commission indicated need for more than 700 billion to 1 trillion for the 2021 general elections. How many of us Ugandans really believe that if the president takes part, another person can be announced winner? Other than keeping in the habit for the sake of it, is it worth spending 200 billion on what most of us see as inconsequential presidential elections? What if Mr. Napito has a point? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, turn down the volume on your TV set, sir, and speak to us.
Yes, please.
Yes, what's your name and where you're calling from?
Hello.
Hello, your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, please.
Yes, we can hear you. Turn down the volume on your TV set. You're giving us an echo, and I think you're giving yourself an echo where you are. Can you move away from your TV?
This is Frederick.
Yes, Frederick. Go ahead.
Hello.
Frederick, we can hear you, but you have your TV on, so you're listening to yourself. We lost him. Hello, do we have another caller? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir, your name and where you're calling from?
Hello.
Turn down the volume on your TV set. You're giving us an echo in studio. Turn down the volume on your TV set so that you can speak to us. We lost that one as well. If you're calling us, can I ask the production crew, if someone is calling, please first turn down the volume on the TV. If you're watching with other people, walk away from the TV, because you don't have to listen to yourself as you talk to us. Otherwise, you'll get an echo. Let me bring the discussion back into studio here. Agatha has been quiet. Let me come back to you, Agatha. You said a national dialogue is something the country needs. What does it need to discuss in the circumstances?
You are not saying we don't have issues to discuss, are you?
No, we have a lot of issues.
Because we have been talking about them. We have been talking about flawed elections. We have been talking about the big elephant in the room that Ona is talking about, which is transition and succession. And succession is a topic that has been around for some time now. And me, I actually think that most of the issues we have come from that. So I think if we can wake up every day for the last how many years and go to vote, even if we know the elections have become meaningless, I think we should give this a chance too. And let people dialogue. Because me, I actually have the same issues like you, that the implementation of the dialogue is the problem. But that we don't have issues to dialogue about, I think we actually do.
Ona has been saying one thing which I think is fundamental. Can people on a dialogue table, to have a real dialogue, people look each other eyeball to eyeball? There must be an equal threat or opportunity on both sides of the table to have a meaningful dialogue. And the question is, in this country, where does that opportunity exist? Can I pick a call and then we'll answer that? Hello?
Opportunity on both sides of the table to have a meaningful dialogue. And the question is,
hello? If you're watching TV, turn down the volume on your TV set or walk away from the TV to make a call, because we have lost about, I think, 4 callers because they are listening, because you're listening to yourselves on your TVs. Yes, let's come back. Hello? 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 Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
So, from Entebbe,
Yes, please.
I see the dialogue will not get the results because people will attend with hunger. Nobody settled. What do you expect someone to speak? What do you expect it is that speak when they are facing 7 and the rest? I think the only solution is to first reduce the power of the president to appoint big people in the offices, and I think the parliament is the best place to dialogue, not in the public. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting comment. How do you release the power of the president to appoint people if you haven't sat him down and have a discussion?
And I know the only way you can reduce is that remove the president from electoral fear. The main reason why presidents across the world want to appoint people and what have you, because it's hinged on their electoral fortunes. You need to have ability to organize and to control for you to win an election.
How do you remove
So
the
if you
president?
have a president who needs to win an election, he will never want to lose the power to appoint people, no? Because it's part of a winning strategy for an election anywhere. So I think the country is having some kind of election fatigue, and even the worst thing is that it's creating paralysis in public service delivery, which is widely acknowledged, including by the president. If you have, I think what most Ugandans out there are crying about is delivery of public services, regardless of who holds what is called
Ona,
power.
did you want to mean remove Museveni from elections?
Yeah, that's
How?
what I'm saying.
And because you used his title as president,
Yes,
and you think that he's also beheld by fear of elections.
naturally.
Fear of losing power, you mean?
Through
Is
an
it-
election.
Is it fear?
Through,
So,
through an election.
so you're saying we should not have an election?
No,
We
no,
should let
I'm
him-
saying the world, I've always said this, you can have our model, at least for this period, when you have a leader who has immense power and who people believe widely has the power to influence the elections. And then they are getting frustrated, and some of them want to be violent,
So-
and then
so-
he has to react. And then you have paralysis, especially this, in my view, most people want government to function, you know?
So you want him crowned Emperor YKM?
It doesn't have to be emperor.
Uganda.
It doesn't
Because- I mean,
it doesn't be have emperor. You can have whatever
emperors-
title you have.
It's emperors and kings that don't subject
But
themselves
that
to
is
elections.
worse than dialogue.
It doesn't
Even
have-
if we are going to dialogue as many times as,
Because
as possible.
how do you remove him from an electoral process?
Well, we are going to a dialogue. We are going into a dialogue. That should be
We
the
can't tell
discussion.
him to
I
stay in
don't
power
have
until
this.
he's dead so that he doesn't have fear of the election. How can Onapito think that's a better option than a dialogue?
No. I have just said, please go and have a dialogue about that.
But
Instead of having
you
a
know-
dialogue about things that have been said before and have not changed anything. Have a dialogue about something which is practical.
Arenito Rugendo is watching us, and he's posted this on his Twitter, on his Twitter handle. He says, this dialogue is on because its tactics are hinged on the need to resolve the political question.
Which is,
Every Ugandan wants to be president,
you see,
but I wished it focused on the need to resolve electricity tariffs, interest rates, the railway, and youth unemployment first.
Can I respond
I have
to
a
that?
caller. Just a moment.
they
Hello?
have
Hello?
bodies on that.
Hello? We lost that one. Sorry. We have another. Hello? Hello? We lost that one as well. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Bio. I'm calling from Namgongo.
Yes, please.
Now, the gentleman in the studio there seems to be very subjective.
Mm.
I don't know whether it's because he doesn't feel that the other Ugandans equally need to. He doesn't feel that that the majority of Ugandans out there are actually cannot survive on $1 a day.
Mm.
And there are so many issues to be talked about.
Mm.
Private care, rule of law, among others.
Mm.
But I strongly believe that if dialogues take place, then there must be a neutral ground And no one has come in as a big fish to actually dictate on what should be done and what should be discussed. I'd like to appreciate the lady, the other state futures. She seems to be understanding what Ugandans are going through. And I think on the right track.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honor, you're being very subjective.
No, I'm actually, I totally agree. I'm being subjective. That's what debate is about. You must have a position. I think my position is very clear. That this dialogue is about a stalemate where a lot of people involved in it feel the current processes are not working. There is an election. I started with that. There is a parliament. There is district government. So ideally, there is nothing to discuss. There are institutions, there are laws, there is a constitution. So what is the issue? The issue is in the wake of the removal of age limit. The people feel there is now a stalemate in terms of how do you now change leadership at the very top. And when they present that to President Museveni, he will say the constitution is there, the elections are there. But those who think otherwise don't trust those processes. So that's what the dialogue should be about.
Let me hear
either to convince him that these processes are not working or to agree with him that they are working.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Where are you calling from and your name, sir?
I'm calling from Fort Portal.
Yes, your name, sir?
Kasande.
Kasande. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, sir. I think the issue of dialogue, it's not necessary. We are in a sarcastic political environment. When we go into something
sarcastic,
very sure that someone has already won it. We went into politics. We went into elections of the last elections. We already knew who is going to win. The strong candidate, the strong second candidate was under house arrest for days. Did not have time to challenge the results. 2, we went into a petition of the Tojikwatako. We already knew what was going to happen, because putting on the other aspect of the MP's additional term of office, additional years in the office, the main point was the presidential age limit. So that was circus where we knew the president was going to pass and the MPs were going to lose, but it was in favor of his. So going into that dialogue, it's not going to change, it's not going to prove a point. There's nothing we are going to get out of it. It's just a wastage of time and resources. I know we already know the country we are living in, and it's going to be like that. But until maybe natural occurs, and then Mr. Museveni is no more, that's when we think there will be a change. But as long as we still have Mr. Museveni, it's not going to happen. And we are going to remain in this political circus until the end of his time. And we don't know when it will happen, or maybe we shall have to go to the streets and fight him like how he did in the 80s. And other than that, there's no going to be a change, that a transition is going to happen, or anything like that is going to happen normally. No, it's not going to happen, and in this era of Museveni, I don't see it coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kasande. Do we have another caller? Ladies and...
So Charles, before the ladies,
just a moment, just a moment, let me pick this one. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, Bob is my name.
Yes, Bob. Go ahead.
Bob is my name.
Yes, Bob, you have your TV on. I can hear an echo of my voice there.
And what I'm saying is that the dialogue is necessary because it's all about the framework in which we operate. Because, hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Because if another actor comes, he will still use the same framework to continue with what is happening. For instance, some of us want an 8-year term for the president, so that the president who is elected never participates in an election again. You see, that is one of the issues. It doesn't concern the status quo, but the framework in which you operate, and other issues also.
Okay.
Why do we fear to sit down and talk?
Thank you. Why do we fear to sit down and talk? Prosper.
So that's the CA now. Just I wanted first the caller before the last one was echoing that kind of frustration, where there is no credible election. So either we just resign the situation or we fight. So I'm saying the third option is, if you are resigned to the fact that Yoweri Museveni is here, and your main problem in most times is not him as a person, but you feel the system is not delivering. So can we make the system deliver with him in place? That's what the dialogue should be about.
I mean, he's been at this for 32 years.
But that's what the dialogue should be about.
Hello? Hello? I have a caller? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Eric, and I'm calling from Ukono.
Yes, Eric. Go right ahead.
Yeah. I'm saying I can hear some people trying to discuss the president. To me, I feel Mr. Museveni as an individual is a nice person. But collectively, when you put them as NRM, that's when things go wrong. Again, we may need really the dialogue, but look at the poor people, the taxpayers, like the current mobile money. Assuming you're sending mobile money to your sick old mother who doesn't work to get money for treatment, and then they also tax you for that. Look at things like that. Things like that needed dialogue. But I see, we feel like we are all defeated. Sometimes we feel Mr. Museveni is so brilliant enough, if he can drive this country for over 30 years. Sometimes we feel that he knows everything. And then the best we can do is to align the government, the people in the government. They are wrong elements. There are people who are so corrupt, they go free, they eat our money. We are paying tax. Everybody's paying tax here. Ugandans must be taught things concerning the importance of paying taxes, because it's
Eric,
pay taxes.
Eric,
Know the benefit. Nobody questions.
Yes,
but
Eric.
Other countries, they come to your office, they even say, I'm a taxpayer, I need these services. I'm a taxpayer, I need this service. But something doesn't happen. Yet, for us who don't get the salary, we go to the same market with people who get our taxes, and they get it at a higher salary. We go with them in the same market to buy things. Look at people in Nakasero, in Owino. Look at them. They are all mixtures of people who go to the same market. Actually, there is an issue that would have been solved with the dialogue. But again, it doesn't make sense. If you see the person who's coming to launch it is the president himself. Again, the person who should implement it is the same person. Why don't we just abandon that? Maybe the old people don't have things to do right now. The best thing to do to advise the president to align the people who do the services for us, because we pay them through taxes every day, and it's so painful. Ugandans must rise up and know that we pay taxes, and something must be done, not that dialogue. For what? Align the government now.
Thank you. Well, I don't know how you reconcile that, because President Museveni has been the most consistent, the most constant factor over a very long period of time. Yes,
I wanted to comment on the caller who said President Museveni is nice as a person. We are not here to talk about the president's niceness or badness. We're talking about him as a person who holds power, whose policies we see every day affect us. So whether he's nice in his house or not, that's none of our business. The business here is, like, as a citizen, what is the president doing? We have seen him, be vocal on issues that should be left to institutions like, the police. When there's a murder and the president is already at the crime scene, then you wonder what has eroded so much of our institutions that he would have to show up there. And these are the questions that you have to ask. But for me, ultimately, the dialogue, it's okay, people can dialogue whenever they want. But the idea that this will be a national dialogue, I doubt that it will be a national dialogue.
Let me pick a caller. Hello? Hello?
The national dialogue is taking place right now.
Hello?
In this studio.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where are you calling from?
Edgar Peter Zana.
Yes, Edgar. Go ahead.
Hello?
Edgar, we can hear you. Go ahead with your question or comment.
My comment is number one. I think the dialogue is something that's good.
And I think every Ugandan should actually embrace the dialogue. But my question will be one to the organizers. You know, sometimes when we look at, we would love to look at the objectives. After looking at the objectives, we would love them to give us a timeline on when we should actually get back to them and see whether these objectives were achieved. For example, if they tell us that maybe they are going to help us, or in this dialogue, we shall see maybe the way the Electoral Commission is put in place changed. Then we expect maybe like after 3 months during the dialogue for them to tell us, look here, we went into this dialogue and have been able to achieve X, Y, Z. But if there are no objectives, for example, I had one of the organizers, Hudson, saying that this dialogue can go on for 5 years. It can even go up to 20 years. It means we may not be able to achieve what actually we're supposed to achieve. So we would want to hear the objectives. After that, we want to hear what they would have achieved in this so-called dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you, Edgar.
Thank you.
Let's bring this discussion back into the studio. There's another caller. Hello? 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 You're listening to yourself if you're trying to call us. Turn down the volume on your TV set. Let's come back into studio. You hear the different opinions of some of the viewers here. The elephant in the room, as you put it, Agatha, is how do you deal with President Yoweri Museveni? What role does he play? And I put the question that Ona put earlier. You didn't have the opportunity to respond to it. You need what is there to gain, the opportunity lost for the people who sit on the different sides of the table, and the threat if they don't dialogue in a genuine way. Do you find those conditions present in this country today to force a dialogue? And we shouldn't deceive ourselves, because politics is at the center of everything. You saw the debate that created mobile money tax and OTT tax.
Yes.
It's political.
Yes.
Everything else we are having a discussion about the economy, the exchange rate, the price of fuel, the price of electricity that Rugendo was talking about, are all determined by the politics of the country at any particular time, and the policies the political leaders put in place. President Museveni has been a constant factor for the last 32 years. And any dialogue today, whether it's talking about the functioning of the economy, the social structuring of this country, or the politics of the country, will rotate around what President Museveni has been able to do or failed to do over the last 32 years, and how you break that to start a new chapter. So,
I wanted to actually respond to Rugendo in that manner. That, for example, the reason you'd have electricity tariffs that are high is you have a government that fails to even get bidders to construct these dams. There was a story recently about a company that was supposed to construct the SGR, and the company, of course, it was inflated far higher than in Kenya. And the company, the CEO, the reasons he gave to Museveni was the kickbacks he gave of $20 million. So what do you say that the politics affect every aspect? For example, we're supposed to have Karuma built by our own money. We have an energy fund that we are supposed to keep money into and build those dams ourselves. But now we are going to pay high tariffs and pay the loan. So we go back to the elephant in the room, which is that. And I am saying that the reason Museveni would want to come, I am just thinking, is how does he think his end is going to be? How long does Museveni think he still has around here? Museveni is officially 74, officially. I don't know how unofficially, how old he is. But I think even him, there's something at stake for him. He has children, he has grandchildren. If things end the way people fear they will end, that Museveni will go the bad way of fighting, of the bush, or anything, or violence. Museveni also has something to worry about. He has seen
Museveni tells you that
he
he has an
seen how
election coming
Gaddafi
up in
went.
2020,
No, but
And when that
but you
election
see,
happens,
if you have an election from 2001 ending up in violence, and the number of people that are killed in that election only keep increasing, it means that there's going to be an election that is going to be mayhem.
There's a time when an election will not give you sustenance over power.
Exactly, exactly. That people every time they go and vote and come back and it's for nothing, they are not going to keep doing that. You saw how walk to work almost brought this government to its knees. So what guarantees does he have that there's not going to be a time when an election is going to go really bad?
Let me just pick one caller, and I will take a message from Musa Ladu, who says, before the elders organized the dialogue, took shape, everybody was calling for it. Now some people are opposed to it. Ugandans like to have their cake and eat it. Hello? Hello? We lost that one. I will take a message from Jose Nwabine, I believe in Kabula Liantonde, who says, to me, the so-called dialogue is another income-generating project for some people, especially the organizers. It's like the National Agricultural Advisory Services or Bonaba Gagawale of sorts. Ugandans are just wary of such lullabies, which are clothed in peace talks and dialogue. What happened to the National Compact? Jose Nwabine. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
This is Frederick Mandela from Masindi.
Yes, Frederick. Keep it brief.
My concern is on the legal framework. When subsections of Ugandans were satisfied with parliamentary amendments of the constitution, they went to constitutional court and the ruling was clear. What about if what is resolved in this dialogue is not reached at?
Okay. I have a message here. Somebody says, Charles, even a dialogue will have terms of resolving issues and vote or majority will prevail. Another viewer here says, I think anything that promises peace is always a good initiative. To that extent, the national dialogue should be welcome. However, I think the mediators are already missing critical steps. In my view, first, you need to map stakeholders to ensure that whoever has a stake in the conflict has a say. My question is, who is participating in this dialogue? How did they win their seat there? A lot of stakeholders are either left out. Secondly, you legitimize this means sitting down one-on-one with the different parties to the conflict, understand their grievances, select legitimate claims from what they say, and then finally you bridge the parties. From what I see, the political parties which are invited to the dialogue don't know its agenda. When did the negotiators, TEFU, the Elders Forum, map the stakeholders, legitimize or pitch goals and start bridging? Since the national dialogue is almost out of the legal configuration of the state, what guarantees that the results will be respected? We're building a state, not a nation. And that's the problem. Henry Mutebe. Another viewer here, Joe Sia, comes back to us and says, here's a painful fact. Uganda has never held real elections because the majority of our people do not have the capacity to choose leaders based on the empirical interests of the country. Our lovely but political ignorant people do not even know what basic things they need to do to safeguard their children's future. Such a people cannot effectively dialogue on the direction of national fortunes. Forget it. Josia in Intinda. Another viewer here says, let me see, who do I have? Okay. The lady, Charles, ask the panelists who determines rigged elections. Bernard Imperi. The lady insists on rigged elections. Bernard, I don't know which of the ladies in here. I'm afraid we got to bring this show to an end, so I'm going to come back to the studio and say, how do you resolve the Museveni question?
Go to the Constitution. I think the biggest challenge right now for the country is in the Constitution. The President is head of state, head of government, and commander-in-chief. That's the real power of the president. The biggest weakness is head of government, the inability of government to deliver the satisfaction of the citizens. I think if they could split to retain, for for the president of the day, head of commander-in-chief and head of state, and creates
a head of government.
Head of government to get a government that delivers. To me, that's what this country would need practically in this uncertainty of how long the head of state can continue.
How do you achieve that? Do you achieve that through
a dialogue?
Yes. Or through a constitutional amendment or a new constitution?
You have to join the process. You have a dialogue, and if that's the agreement, you have a new constitution to create an elected head of government who is not head of state and who is not commander-in-chief.
Is that a proposition that President Museveni would be amenable to?
I suspect it's something that, first of all, it guarantees him control of the military, control of foreign affairs, and control of resources to some extent. Because otherwise, you are going to offer him something which threatens what he wants, and he will reject it. In fact, his position is already clear. He has said, we have iPod to discuss these issues of political parties, but otherwise, on the bigger issue, we take it to the people through an election. So,
but he has also complained about those very elections. Okay, Agatha, let me come back to you. How do you resolve the Museveni question in any dialogue process? Because he is, whether you like it or not, at the center of it anyway. So if he walks in on 21st and presides over the opening, and everything goes to stand still because he's coming to the opening, and then after he says, you can go ahead and dialogue, and then he walks out.
No, Charles, I am alive to the fact that the dialogue seems to be at the mercy of Museveni. Because like you said, there was the Citizens Compact that went and got views from all Ugandans. And at the end of the day, we got a constitutional amendment that had about 2. And in the Electoral Commission, which was the main point, brought just a change in the name to add the word independent, and they thought that would make
it wasn't adopted.
Independent.
And I can tell you that the independent thing was not adopted.
Yeah, but
you only got President Museveni to appoint a new team there, headed by Justice Simon Yabaka.
Yeah, so we are all alive to that fact. But like one caller said, I think all efforts towards peace, towards transition, should be welcomed. And I asked this question before. If we have been going to vote every day, well knowing that our votes might not count, why can't we give this a chance and say, let's see how it goes? Probably Museveni is also worried that, things might not end well for me. And I have had those issues. I have had those stories. Remember in, what president had refused to leave power because they said they're going to persecute him? Guinea?
Which country?
Was it Guinea? Like there was an election before ours or after ours. I forget. But what I'm saying is, if it is true that Museveni is worried about his safety after power, and I think those are concessions we should be willing to make. I have heard people saying we can't dialogue a dictator out of power, we can't massage a dictator out of power, but does it matter at this stage how we get him out of power? Because if we think we have had these problems, and we're stating here that even the economy, the social problems, the cultural, the economic problems stem from this one issue, which is the political issue, why don't we dialogue with him? And if he is willing, he leaves, and we form a new government.
Isn't that where the problem is?
And
if
yes,
he
the
is
problem,
willing.
exactly.
If he is willing.
And I've said,
is there a chance that he'll be willing?
Exactly. I think that
the
trap,
we should just explore the little chance that is there.
The trap that is the dialogue is that Museveni will come and lecture people for 3 hours and tell them how much they don't know about the history of this country. And then he sets them free and says, you're free to talk. Because he has a government to run. It's like, so with the elders and everybody organizing, what power?
What will
my
it
question
cost
is,
us?
my question is, what power does the elders, do they have to bring Museveni to face with him? They don't have
but ideally they should. We
are
citizens.
He is the chief elder. He's the chief elder.
Our time is out. We need to get out of here. As a younger journalist just arriving in Kampala, one of the things I covered first was an attempt at a dialogue of political parties and the national resistance movement just before the opening up of the political space. It started as a group of 6. It was expected to bring together the traditional political parties, UPC, DP, the Conservative Party, and I think some new formations that had emerged, Reform Agenda then, or PAFO, We're supposed to be together to have that discussion. Dr. Uganda chaired those discussions. The traditional political parties refused to be part of that dialogue because they said they didn't have an agenda. I think people like, I think Reform Agenda and PAF were saying, we can't come to have tea and you are in charge of the process and you're thinking we are talking. They were talking here at Fair Hotel. What happened is somehow, somewhere, government succeeded in finding other political parties to negotiate with. The group started growing from a group of 6, it was a group of 7, it was a group of 11, and the numbers kept growing. Some of the names you can't pronounce. Republican Women and Youth Party, led by a woman called Stella Nambuya. People's Independent Party. There was another one, Poverty Action Something Party. And then so many other formations, Movement for Democratic Change or something. And they spent taxpayers' money dialoguing.
But that taxpayers' money is spent.
No, produced something like a report. And that report, I don't know where Dr. Uganda put it, because, and I know Uganda watches this show, he needs to tell us what happened to the dialogue process. But then finally, we had the opening up of the political space. What that dialogue achieved is it got a lot of characters to register political parties. At one time, I think there was about 100 name reservations. We ended up with about 39. The Electoral Commission recently chopped them to about 29 political parties that are registered in this country. That was the dialogue of that time. Though I think this particular process has some bit of foundation. There are people who believe there might be good coming out of it. The problem is they have been trying and struggling. The Morrisons, the Godbars, the Elders Forum and others have been struggling with how do you get President Museveni's buy-in by acknowledging what achievements he has had over the last 50 years of his engagement in the country's liberation struggle, if you want to put it that way, but also point out what the shortcomings have been or what threats to the country and his struggle might exist if he doesn't agree to a negotiated discussion on how he transitions.
Understand our place and know that Museveni has the power and we don't. And I'm sure I know that we are the ones that give it to him. But if we understand that he has the power, he has the money, he has the guns, he has the army, and humble ourselves, not humble in that sense, but know our place and work towards what we want.
That's heartbreaking to say we need to know our place.
We can't know our place because what is our place?
Our time is out. We need to get out of here. I'm afraid our time is out. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, starting with Morrison Wakakamba for agreeing to join us via telephone link-up earlier at the beginning of the show. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you very much to all the callers who managed to get through and those who sent us messages and continue this debate. I encourage you to continue this discussion on our social media platforms, especially Twitter and Facebook. Thank you very much. Onapito Ekomoloit, Corporate and Legal Affairs Director at Nile Breweries AB InBev. Thank you very much. Agatha Atweide. Agatha Atweide is a law student at Makerere University and a journalist. We also have Rosebel Kagumire. I know Rosebel Kagumire had a relationship with the Women's Situation Room at some stage, and she's a blogger and activist. Thank you very much. From me, it's a good night. Join us again tomorrow, next Sunday. Good luck to all the primary 7 pupils who are going to begin your final exams tomorrow and Tuesday. We wish you the best of luck for the country. And of course, senior 6 and the other candidates who are going to sit exams. This is our open success card to all of you. Thank you very much and have a good night.